Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to our Family and Friends updates. And thank you for joining us today. Hope we are all enjoying the last bit of warm weather. The cooler days are ahead, and hopefully they will not stop us from embracing what life has to offer. I find myself drawn to the warmth of sunny days. No surprise there. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Petronella Ndebele, and I'm the Director of Strategic Communications and Stakeholder Relations. I'll be facilitating today's program. And before we proceed, we'll start with the land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is governed by Treaty 13, signed with Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. We also acknowledge that we are all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants, either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Today, we pay tribute to the ancestors of those of African and indigenous origin and descent. It's great to be here again with you. And before we begin, a few housekeeping items to address. We ask that you use the chat function to make a comment or ask a question. We encourage everyone to turn on your camera so that we can see one another, but please do remain on mute throughout the session. And if you're experiencing any technical issues, kindly reach out to Atam, and I'm sure Atam has already put his details in the chat. On the screen right now, coming up is the agenda for our meeting today. This month, we are celebrating the National Disability Employment Awareness Month at Community Living Toronto. We aim to continue the conversations about disability inclusion and promote inclusive and meaningful employment opportunities for all. And with that, I would like to invite Sarah McDonald, Project Manager, Social Enterprise and Employment Projects, who will be sharing an update on our innovative service, My Job Match. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Petronella. Good afternoon, everybody. As Petronella mentioned, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and deems, to keep it short, a chance for us to recognize the importance of creating inclusive workplaces that embrace the skills, the talents of individuals with disabilities. This month provides us with an opportunity to celebrate the strides we've made in promoting inclusive hiring practices and renew our commitment to supporting people with disabilities in achieving meaningful employment. One of the ways of advancing our mission is through My Job Match, our digital platform designed to support employment supports professionals, job seekers, and employers. Through My Job Match, we're not just matching people to jobs, we're creating pathways to independence and opportunities for individuals who are often underrepresented in the workforce. I'd like to take the next few minutes to highlight the progress we've achieved with My Job Match, starting with the reasons behind its creation. Next slide. So in 2019, the Government of Ontario announced its intention to make changes to employment services in the province of Ontario. This meant significant changes for social service agencies, as it required a shift in the way that services are being delivered. This shift meant we needed to rethink and be innovative in how we connect and assign individuals we support who are looking for employment. So in 2022, we received funding through the Ministry of Labor, specifically the Skills Development Fund, to create an innovative technology and a new employment process focused on efficiently and effectively job matching and collaborating with other service organizations. So in 2023, we launched what we now call My Job Match. Next slide. So what is My Job Match? So it is a matching technology, takes the skills, the interests, and the location of a job seeker and matches based on job opportunities that are present in the platform. An employment supports professional can take 3 approaches to matching. They can match a job seeker to jobs within the community. They can make matches based on skills and interests. And they can match based on skills, interests, and locations. The second key feature of My Job Match is that job opportunities within the platform are accessible network-wide. That means that all organizations participating in My Job Match can see the same job listings, creating a shared pool of opportunities for job seekers. This represents a significant shift as it opens up new avenues to collaborate among organizations. By working together, we can collectively provide more employment options, share resources, and ultimately better support individuals in finding meaningful employment. Next slide. So we are very excited to share how the platform has expanded since its launch in 2023. So where the platform was once only accessible to organizations, this past March, we expanded it so that job seekers can either take ownership of their existing job seeker profile, or if they are new and looking for support, they can create a My Job Match account, choose to work with an organization, or select to proceed in their employment journey independently. Next. What does this mean? It means that they can browse and like jobs. They can start a job application. And they can also check notifications to see if there's been any updates to new jobs or job matches. So it's very similar to the look and feel of a social media platform where you can like a job or you can check your notifications, etc. Next slide. But that's not all. The platform was designed to be fully interconnected, meaning the system built for our employment supports providers and the platform for job seekers work seamlessly together. This integration allows for better communication, more streamlined approach, and real-time collaboration between the job seeker and the organization helping them. It creates a more cohesive experience, ensuring that both job seeker and the service provider can easily access the same opportunities and resources, making the overall process more efficient and effective. Next slide. So these are some examples of our success that we've seen with My Job Match. We have Mark, Marla, and Cedar, all examples of individuals that have responded to job postings on My Job Match based on what other positions organizations have posted. And it's been tremendously successful to see the collaboration among organizations and really the opportunities that it's created for other job seekers as a shared platform. Next slide. I will be hosting webinars each month. The next one is November. That seems far away, but I'm happy to connect with you if you want to reach out to either myself or my colleague, Nick. The details are shared on the next slide. And if you have any questions about My Job Match or would like a demo or more information, please feel free to email me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for shedding some light on My Job Match. And it's great to see how the platform has expanded. And as Sarah indicated, please register for the webinar. The link has been added in the chat as well. And you can also visit myjobmatch.ca for more information. Thank you so much, Sarah. And now I would like to welcome a very special guest for today's Community Unplugged session, Chris Beasley. Chris is the CEO at Community Living Ontario, a journey he began in June 2013. Before Community Living Ontario, he was the executive director of an adult literacy network organization serving Toronto and York regions, and is currently on the board of Community Literacy of Ontario. We are delighted to welcome you, Chris, and deeply appreciate your participation today. And Brad, over to you.
All right, Chris, there you are. Good to see you.
Here I am. Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us today. Just a bit more, Chris, before we jump into it. I mean, community living movement is really fortunate to have a lot of passionate and dedicated leaders. And I'd see you as one of them. So I've really enjoyed working with you over the last number of years. And I've gotten to know you as a leader that's got a real vision for the future, but also an understanding of what's going on now and the challenges faced by individuals and their families and communities and support agencies. And I really appreciate that way you sort of keep all that in your head and still try and move things forward. So really appreciate you taking the time out of what I know is a busy day and a busy time of year.
No, really happy to be here and have a conversation.
Great. So Petronella mentioned that you've been at CLO since 2013, but your involvement with the community living movement goes much further back and deeper than that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, my wife, Lori, and I live in Toronto, now have two kids. Aaron's 23, and Mitchell just turned 30 a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, milestone there. More for his parents than him, I think.
I was going to say, you're aging well.
Yeah. But you know, going back to when he was very young, you know, and originally found out that he has an intellectual disability and the implications of that, we thought, well, what will a good life look like for Mitchell? And so that's when we got connected to Community Living Toronto, specifically around getting connected with our local daycare and making sure that it was an inclusive environment for him. And so Community Living Toronto was able to facilitate that intake process to assure them that, you know, that they were there to help with that transition. They were very willing, so it was a really great experience. And that continued through into Mitchell's inclusion in our neighborhood primary school. And so again, Community Living Toronto was part of that and making sure that to address any concerns that staff or the administration might have, and just to make sure that it was a smooth process. And so we really saw the value of what Community Living Toronto was all about and what they were there to help us do in the beginning. And that's then, you know, once Community Living finds you, they want to keep you because here I am today, right? But so it was, you know, and I forget who first approached me, but it was, you know, hey, we have an inclusive education committee. Would you be interested? And so, of course, given the experience we had, they said, of course, that sounds really interesting. And so got involved with that. And then after a year or two, it was, hey, would you be interested in being on the board? And again, interesting though, that was 2001, I think. And so I stood for the board for election, and I wasn't voted in.
Oh,
so ouch, right?
Yeah.
But luckily, they, you know, the board in its wisdom had a spot in its back pocket that they were able to appoint. So I got in through the back door, and was on the board for 9 years. After that, in various roles. I think I was vice president a couple of times and chaired government relations and education. And I don't know, again, once you're in there, you sort of—
You've done it all. Yeah.
You've done it all, yeah. So that was my introduction and my background specifically with Community Living Toronto. And luckily now that's, you know, I'm able to combine my lived experience as a parent now with a professional role with Community Living Ontario. So it's you never know how life is going to twist and turn, but it was a very good twist and turn in my case. So
great great story, and thanks for sharing your journey. And thanks for sort of giving the perspective on how Community Living Toronto's been involved in your journey. I'm glad you're able to share that. So I think at last count that I was aware of, there's about 117 members of Community Living Ontario. Am I right? Or have you gone up?
Now.
123. I'm at a date, but so that's good. So the organization continues to grow and really represents a strong advocacy voice in the sector or in the province for people with intellectual disabilities and those that are around them. What do you think, from your involvement in touching base with so many organizations across the whole province, what are the biggest challenges that you think the developmental sector is facing today?
Wow, how much time you got? Yeah, that's a big question, and I'll try and give a short answer. I think there's the obvious one is resources, right? And that's what, our recent Five to Survive campaign was all about, recognizing the critical lack of investment by government in a consistent way over a long period of time. And so I think that's where, a lot of our members hit the brick wall in terms of their responsibility that they feel and owe to the people and families that they support, and not having the adequate resources to do that. So I think that's an ongoing issue around the whole advocacy piece. I think another challenge, though, that our associations face is the connection, or sometimes lack thereof, to the families where they exist. Sometimes there aren't families, but where there are families, I think there's been sometimes families are unable to, or sometimes unwilling to be supportive, to be involved, to be part of their loved ones' lives. And in other times, the support organizations don't encourage that. And so there's a whole dynamic there that we see that I think we need to pay attention to if we're going to be organizations who are of the community, who are all about community connections, and we're all about inclusion. But if we don't start in our own backyard, what does that say about our commitment to community? So there's a whole discussion and something to unpack around that. And at Community Living Ontario, we're trying to reach out to we've identified about 125 family groups existing in Ontario right now, who are getting together mostly outside of our local association members. So that tells us something. So we're connecting more with that and trying to make those connections with agencies to try and, because if we're going to address those, lack of resource and waiting lists and all the things, it's not going to be in silos. It's going to be together. So we're really trying to lean into that right now.
That's good, and I think that's a great point. And it's always interesting to me that we're not better aligned, because there's intellectual disability touches tens of thousands of Ontarians. There are community living organizations in every riding across the whole province, and people, there's fantastic success stories, everywhere. But there still seems to be, some back and forth and not enough alignment on key stuff. And it's more of we sort of look at it as a zero sum, where if somebody gets something, it means that you must therefore lose something. And it's certainly in our organization, it's a challenge to make sure that we can't be all things to all people, but we try and be, as good as we can and try and get better every day. Have you seen, what are your thoughts on how we do that better? Are there examples of where it's worked better, where there really is a strong sense of community cohesion, collaboration, and alignment?
Yeah, we see examples of that certainly around the province, and there's no magic formula. I think, sometimes I hear, well, of course, in a big city, they have access to a lot more resources, a lot more things going on, and things for people to do, and transportation is better. And so, they've people, agencies and families and people, they've got a lot easier there. And then conversely, I hear from cities saying, well, of course, in a small town, you've got a much more sense of community and cohesion, and a lot more people know each other in their communities. And so it's a lot easier to make those connections. And so it's not an either or, it's a yes and. And so the idea that if you look at the connections you do have, look at the relationships that do exist, and look at for those opportunities. If there isn't transportation, what do other people do? Well, how can we connect to that? How can we connect to each other in the community? And what is our role as an organization to facilitate those connections and relationships? And it doesn't matter whether there's 100 people in a village or 3 million people in Toronto.
Yeah, and it's important, I think, to keep in mind as well that we're stronger together, we're better off together, and working towards understanding our differences, coming together where we can, and pushing forward. So in the last year, Community Living Ontario was really involved in a strong advocacy campaign, along with Oasis and others, around advocating for a really critical, in this case, financial crisis within the sector, called hashtag 5 to Survive. Can you talk a little bit about that and how we got it and where things ended up?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, Brad, because it was certainly necessity was the mother of that invention, right? I mentioned about the crisis levels and lack of investment and funding. As an exercise in advocacy, it was really interesting to see, again, the one voice, the cohesion, the participation from everyone, and not just that you mentioned us and Oasis and other provincial organizations, but really at the grassroots, where people within communities who had an affiliation for this cause, they rallied, they went to their MPPs, they signed petitions, they really engaged with this issue. So it was an all hands on deck kind of situation, and it really taught us a lot about the value of that collective action, collective will. And so we really, we've thought of advocacy, I think, over the last number of years as more of a low simmer, a backroom meetings with ADMs and ministers and the bureaucrats and the politicians, and engaging on issues. And certainly we've always done that. And you folks at Community Living Toronto are really strong in that and making those relationships. But where has it gotten us? I think it's got us having positive relationships. We're able to have those meetings and be in the room and have constructive dialogue, but it hasn't moved the needle, at least from a funding perspective, in the last 30 years. And so, we really learned a lot from that, because we did get some movement on that, and we got collectively about 3% of the 5 we were asking for, where none was in the offing before that. So looking at that, it sort of said, okay, the environment's changed, the political landscape has changed. How do you cut through the clutter? How do we make a more collective, louder statement? And I think that was really one of the big takeaways from 5 to Survive.
Yeah, we've had a couple of successes in recent years, and it seemed like one was in terms of pandemic pay and what was temporary wage enhancement, then became permanent wage enhancement. And ours was one of the only sectors, apart from PSWs, that was given that increase to our staff, much needed. And there was also an increase to passport funding as well of about 10%. I've got that right?
Yeah. So, and you're absolutely right, Brad. It's not I don't mean to negate the incremental gains we've had in various things over the years, right? But because otherwise, if we didn't, I'd be out of a job. So
no, we have had, there was that, and then with 5 to Survive, we came together around sort of a common theme and one message, and also I think there was more than 15,000 people signed the petition that we put together. We had more than 50 interactions with media, whether it be television or radio or newspaper interactions, and we did see movement response. The ministry appreciated what our message was, and it landed. I always find it hard. There's so much demand across so many sectors. When you're in government, you hear every day from people that need something, and so many are very deserving. How do you set yourself apart and above from what others are doing, and make the case that it's time to do something for us? And I think that 5 to Survive was a really good example of I was inspired by that. It was fun to be a part of, and really good to know that we got much needed money. Really made a significant difference for our organization as well, who struggled really hard with budget issues last year. So what's next? You've got something else in the offering around advocacy and where you want to see the sector push for now. Why don't you tell us about the new endeavor?
Sure. So again, piggybacking on the success of Five to Survive, what we learned from that, again, the changing face of what advocacy means, what it can look like. Our next campaign is under the hashtag Waiting to Belong. And really what we're looking at there is not only the sector as it exists, but look at which supports their 35,000 people directly with supports and services right now. We're also looking to the 50,000 and growing list of people who are waiting for those services and supports. And so understanding that if we engage with those people and the families, the family groups, the networks that are out there, what does that look like for you on a day-to-day? And how can we connect that to our message to say, you know what, we need a stable, strong support sector who can provide, who is here, who is ready, willing, and able to provide those supports if government has the will to bring the resource to bear. So, we want to connect people and families to the message, to the campaign, to the efforts. So again, it's that collective effort, it's that collective voice, because really, again, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And so if we can get that message across and get the engagement of those who are looking from the outside in, then the resource flows, the necessity for a stable sector is compounded, because we need to make sure we've got our ducks in a row before we can bring more people in. And then ultimately, the goal is for people should have an entitlement to those supports and services. And so we've sort of tiptoed around that for many, many years because government didn't want to hear it. And we're at a point now where, well, too bad, government, because this is what we need. You're very good at labeling people. You're very good at assessing the level of support they need. And then you've been also very good at putting them over to the side to say, well, we'll get to you. Really, if your life becomes a crisis, then we'll support you. And that's not good enough. So Waiting to Belong is a long-term, multi-year approach to advocacy that keeps our issues in front of government. Because to your point, Brad, there's a lot of clutter out there. There's a lot of competition for their attention, for their action, for their resource. So we want to make sure that we provide the key messaging, the opportunities for all of our members and all of those family groups to engage, to be part of, and to push our efforts forward.
Sure. You used a word in there, entitlement, an entitlement to service. Right. What do you mean? What's the difference between an entitlement and, say, a program that's offered? How would you define that?
So right now, all supports are totally discretionary. Right? The government can say you get something and you don't. This is when you get it, and this is when you don't. You're waiting. You're getting this much. You're getting this much. So it really is at the call it the whim. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but it really is up to government on what they're willing to fund and how much they're willing to fund it. So an entitlement is more like education or healthcare. We all have a right as citizens to walk into an ER at a hospital and expect to be served. We might have to wait a long time, but we know we're going to get served, right? Education, same thing. Our kids have a right to an education, all kids. That is a right of citizenship. And so we want to make that a right of citizenship for people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities.
That's great. I think sometimes the wording around discretionary and entitlement can get sort of mixed, because right now we've got the passport program that is sort of functioning like an entitlement, but because everybody sort of gets it when they're graduating high school, gets a notional allocation of $5,500 or whatever while you wait for your assessment, but it's not there as of right now. And we're really pushing for something that because of your disability, you have a right to a number of services throughout your life. And that could be, one of the things that we've talked about in the past is passport, the notional allocation of, the $5,500, waiting to get your full allocation. Why isn't that the full allocation at 18 or 21 when you're done school? You and I both know many families that are aging, and worried about what the future looks like and what's going to happen to their son or daughter when they can no longer take care, if they're living together and those kinds of things. You're probably thinking about this, you and Lori yourself. Is there a point at which government says, we've got this, we will work with you to find out what that future looks like? Are those the kinds of things you've got in mind, or were there others that popped to mind? Or
first of all, are you saying I'm aging, Brett? I
Well,
picked up on that. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I get it.
well,
Yeah.
but technically we are all aging. We've aged in this
Okay,
call. So
fair
yeah.
enough. Some of us more than others, so point taken. You gave two great examples of the idea of full allocation of passport, in a reasonable time frame, whether it's 18 or 21 or whatever. We've got to move forward in a way that recognizes the cliff that people fall off of. And at the other end, where you're talking about, aging people, aging parents, living at home, what is it that we should be, as a society, we should commit to people to saying, you know what, it's reasonable that as a society, we owe it to people to at least know, like, when they die, that they should know that their kids are going to be okay, that they're going to have the supports they need, that it's not just going to be the rug pulled out from under them. That you should be rest assured, we've got you.
Yeah.
Right?
And not just when you die, like that as you're aging and that's becoming an inevitability, that you've seen what the circumstance is, where they're living, whether it's on their own with support or with others and roommates, that you have a sense of what that is, that reassurance. We as a province can do much better for parents who are worrying every day, what happens tomorrow, what happens when I can no longer provide what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. And when you look at those two sort of ends of the life course, earlier youth and later aging, I mean, if we get to an entitlement system, it's not going to be overnight and it's not going to be all at once. So where are two places where government could invest in the road or a pathway to entitlement? Right. And I think those are two really good places.
Yeah, excellent. Going to shift gears a little bit in that it's October is National Disability Employment Month, and is important for so many reasons, right? It generates income for you, it gives you a place to belong, something to do, and purpose. And many people have interesting, engaging careers that keep them engaged in life, and that throughout. Disability in employment in the disability community is a little different in that there's much higher rates of unemployment. It's sometimes hard to find a job that you're interested in and matches your and that. What's been your own your experience with this, either personally or from what you've seen, challenges around employment and things that are going well?
Again, another big question. Let's try and give a quick answer. Employment is one of those places where I think we've always had an uphill battle, and partly because as a community living movement, we said let's create sheltered workshops to make people employment ready. We're going to give them training, we're going to give them some skills, and then they'll be ready for a job. And then so we created that, we invented it with great intentions, and then found out that people spent 20, 30 years there because it was comfortable and there was a place to go and the parents felt that was a secure place to be. Right. Even though, as a movement, we said, we need to get people employment ready. So the idea was there that people should be included, they should have gainful employment. So we went through that era, right? So if I'm looking at sort of the trajectory, I think we're now coming out the other side of that to say, no, the best way to learn about employment is to get a job. Right. And that's where, we can provide supports on the job. And guess what? People who they work with will also be supportive, because we've seen that in the education system as well, right? Best support is typically another kid. So we're learning a lot about that. Now we're having to, I think, work with the Ministry of Labor, looking at the employment transformation and what that entails. And it's big surprise. It doesn't really think about people with intellectual disabilities. And so how support agencies are being compensated is only in jobs that are 20 hours or more per week. Well, we know a lot of our folks don't meet that threshold, at least not initially.
In our case, 50% of the people that we've supported employment supports are working less than that 20 hours a week, and often by choice, just because of their circumstance.
Absolutely. And you know, by choice or by, you know, ability to, you know, be in a place for a certain amount of
Right,
time,
right.
2 hours a day, 3 days a week, whatever it is, I think the value of that, and to your point, you know, what does that instill in people? The idea of self-confidence, of camaraderie, of
Yep.
opportunity, of contribution, right? Those are, it doesn't matter how long, how many hours, you're still there, you're still doing a job. And if we can support a person to do that job, why does it have to be 20 hours? So that's a
Yeah.
piece of advocacy that we're certainly working hard on right now to try and, again, unintended consequence. You know, government likes to mix it up and change things out and transform things, as we know. But there's always fallout from that, and that's where we need to pay attention.
Yeah, excellent. So we've got a couple minutes left here. I want to ask you about the youth initiatives that Community Living Ontario operates. Oftentimes, you know, because of inclusive education, people are growing up with, going to school with people that have disabilities of various types, and that's certainly been the experience of my own kids. And that what are some other ways that Community Living Ontario is working involve young people and, you know, connecting them, and also having young people to understand the community living movement and what we're aiming towards?
Yeah, we're really big on connecting people to people. And so, you know, whether it doesn't matter what age you are, but the younger or the sooner you can get connected to people, develop relationship, have experiences and opportunities, the better. So Student Links is an initiative we run in a number of places across Ontario, really looking to connect high school students with people in their community who share similar interests.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's a sport or a hobby or a vocation. If there's something that they've always wanted to explore or interested in, or are, you know, experiencing, you know, as a hobby, then let's connect you to someone in your community who's doing the same thing. And maybe you guys can connect and explore it together, or maybe this person can help you with, you know, a project you thought about, or maybe they can connect you to the local, you know, if it's your carpentry or model railroads or the model airplane club or whatever it is, connect to the community, other people who are also interested in that. So we spend a lot of time investing in looking for opportunities, looking for those mentorship opportunities. Good. We've got where our youth work. Sorry, it's just,
yeah.
Our youth work is really in full swing around connecting high school kids in their high schools with other kids who, you know, with and without disabilities. How can you disrupt the status quo to create a more inclusive community? And start within your school, but then what does it look like in your community, and how can you work together to do that? And so we do a lot of work there. Again, the sooner we can get to people,
how do people find out more about the Student Links program?
Oh, we're all over the socials. We're all over.
So use the Googler,
our website.
And just search it up.
Use the Google
okay.
on that World Wide Web thingy.
All right, and it looks like Lisa has put that in the chat as well, so that's
Awesome.
that's available.
Thanks, Lisa.
Final question. You got 30 seconds if you need it. And we ask everybody this: Chris, what does belonging mean to you?
Oh, wow. Well, again, back when Mitchell was in grade 6, his school only went to grade 6. There was an award called the Citizenship Award, and it was voted on by the kids in that graduating class in grade 6. Mitchell got the Citizenship Award and the school, the principal said, no, you can't give it to him. He's not eligible. And the students said, well, it's for people, for someone who brings us together, who embodies what it's all about to be together, to belong. And so if it's not him, then it's nobody. So what are you going to do about that? So the principal had to relent, because the students stood behind Mitchell and their choice to say, no, he embodies belonging. So that's what belonging means to me.
Wow, you're getting me all emotional here, Chris. That's what a great example of a community coming together. Thanks again for taking the time. Always a pleasure working with you, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Petronella, back to you.
Brad, there's a question for Chris.
Sure.
Okay, what if family groups and agencies worked together to get the much needed funding to our sector?
What should they do?
Yeah, what
What
if they
would
worked together?
what would the future look like if we all work together and we're much more
Well,
collaborative? Or
yeah, excellent question. I mean, what couldn't we do would be my response,
yeah,
right? Because again, the power of people, the power of collective thought and action, and that's really for Community Living Ontario, that's part of our role. How do we provide the mechanisms, the messaging, and the opportunities and the coordination to bring those agencies and those groups together for collective action? So that, and then look out, here we come.
yeah. And just to add to that a little bit, I also think we need to manage our expectations around how change happens. Very few changes happen like snapping your fingers or flicking a switch. Change happens progressively over time. And as a movement, as organizations, as people, as individuals, we need to keep pushing and marching along. So if we don't get everything we want, we take what we can get and we go on to the next and keep pushing for that next little bit.
Yeah, it's evolution versus revolution, right?
Right. Excellent. Anything else, Petronella?
No, that's all right for now. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you, Chris. Thank you, Brad. And thank you, Chris, for sharing your journey. And we appreciate the work you are doing for advocating for DS issues and bringing all these issues in front of government. And we look forward to engaging with our Waiting to Belong campaign. We appreciate you taking all the time. Thanks, Chris and Brad.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Next, we have an update on community participation, support, and respect. And I'd like to invite Derek Fells, Program Manager, to provide some important updates. And Derek, it's up to you now. You can take it away.
Right. Thank you, Petronella. I'm actually here at a new location that I'm going to get talking about very shortly. So
Awesome.
how about we go ahead with the next slide there. So I want to start off by saying we have a lot of exciting things happening right now with the community participation supports. If you haven't seen it yet, we have the beautiful Your Experience guides going out where you can pick some of our supports, as well as the other exciting things happening with the Community Junction and Creative Village Studio. Don't hesitate to check out the mix events too. Those are happening every month. And the last one was at 102 Advanced Road in Etobicoke, which was like a concert with the band, and it was a lot of fun and dancing and all that stuff. So these are happening now. Their home location was Fairfax, and they were very popular there. And we're just branching out. We're taking the mixed model and trying to get people excited all across the city. So look out for us at all those great locations we have. This is the new website again to try and get registered to things for community participation supports. If you have any questions or concerns, there's the phone number there. We also have an email address for CPS at cltoronto.ca, and our community participation website, which is newly done and looks very great, very user-friendly, and kind of takes you through all the general Q&As you might have about what programs we have available. All right, moving into respite. Just wanted to highlight that we have our new respite location for adults is open now. It's at Sibley, which is near the Victoria Park subway station, and right across the street from Daytonia Park, which is a wonderful external resource for us to get involved in our community. We're all about providing short breaks, and that can be for a week, that could be a weekend, that could be for a few days after school. Reach out to us and we'll try and make sure that we can accommodate what your family needs are. We're connecting now with Adult Respite with our community participation supports as well. So a lot of innovation, a lot of new things happening with respite. I know it was missed during that pandemic, but as of March, we started intakes and we've been hitting the ground running ever since. So if you're interested in adult respite, our contact information is on this slide. We have Kim Priestley, who is the adult respite coordinator, Megan Rudkin, who is our new program supervisor, and Melanie Hooker, who is program manager. All right, I'm very excited to talk about Relax, Recharge, and Renew. This is a collaboration between Community Living Toronto and Destination Toronto. Relax Recharge Renew is basically the signature social responsibility and initiative, providing much deserved breaks to local parents and primary caregivers of children with complex needs, working in partnership with the tourism community. So, like our hotels, our restaurants, and attractions here in Toronto. Destination Toronto facilitates a gifted weekend package for these caregivers to experience Toronto while their child receives care with us here at Community Living Toronto. The weekend package includes transportation, a 2-night hotel stay, tickets to museums or other attractions, and meals at local restaurants. Participating families are identified by one of the several high-quality, provincially funded respite care centers like Respite Choices at Community Living Toronto. So this is just one parent experience who's taken part in this past year. So at the end of March, Destination Toronto called a week before the getaway to ask the family what we're hoping to do for the next 2 days. They got choices of some restaurants near the hotel, and they decided on a steakhouse and ramen place. They were given vouchers to both the places, and it sounds like they had a really great time. They also went to the Ontario Science Center and Little Canada. So the other kids that are in the family were also able to come out and enjoy. We're seeing this as a chance for mom and dad to kind of get a weekend away, but also for a chance for some of the other siblings who might not always have a chance to get mom and dad time to have some really intentional time away. Many of the families we support, sometimes they just spend the weekend cleaning, and we want to make sure that you're also enjoying some time of getting to know each other again and getting to reacquainted with your family members as life is so busy. So another exciting thing for our respite community is that we are going to be moving and saying goodbye to our Lawson location. Lawson is going to be continuing our services up until November, with our new location moving to McMillan. The new intakes at Lawson are going to be temporarily on hold, and part of that is just because of our legislation. We need to do our intakes at the new location just to make sure that we're not asking anybody to repeat work more than once. So for ease of the families and ease of that transition, we're going to be putting new intakes on hold, but please feel free to reach out and let us know if you have any interest in the McMillan location. We're taking those contacts now, and we'll be updating people as we go along. Once we get the location licensed, and that's why I'm here today, I'm actually at the McMillan site. We are working with getting the place painted and furniture moving in. The paint is already on the walls. It looks fantastic. And right now we're getting some furniture assembled. And once we get all that stuff, we'll be inviting our ministry auditors to come in, take a look at the site, make sure that we're operating up to code, and then we'll be celebrating and updating everybody here on this call, as well as memos going out later. Just wanted to throw in some great pictures of our kids who participated in our summer respite this year. Just the amount of wonderful things that we have there. The photo there with the boy holding the blossoms from the tree, that's actually right on the Lawson property. So a lot of big space, a lot of wonderful space that we really have taken advantage of over the decades. It's been a really wonderful time spent there, and we look forward to returning to Lawson once the redevelopment is completed. So just a quick little glimpse, but this is McMillan from the outside. More pictures will come once we've got the paint on the wall and the place decorated a little bit, but it's at 28 McMillan Avenue. It's a 5-bedroom home. We have a wonderful backyard space, large open area for playing. The main floor is wheelchair accessible, and reach out, as I said earlier, if you would like to express any interest, and stay tuned for updates. And I think that's it, right?
Thank you so much, Derek. And on that note of reaching out, I think someone has requested for your email address. If we could kindly put them in the chat as well, your email contact details, please. Thank you so much for sharing those important updates. Lots of exciting things happening. Relax, recharge, and renew. What an exciting initiative. And glad to see you at the Macmillan site. Once again, thanks a lot. As we come to an end, my sincerest thanks to all our presenters today. It was a pleasure to have you with us and to hear your updates. And a special thank you again to Chris for joining us. As we continue building awareness on disability inclusion, we also have a community spotlight live stream on October 29th with CLTO influencers. We will discuss more on the efforts and steps towards inclusion in the workplace. Join us on Instagram and Facebook pages at 1 p.m. Our next Family and Friends update will take place live on November 25th. Please do look out for the registration details closer to the date. Thank you, and let us continue pushing boundaries and challenging the status quo. And together we can continue to create a society where everyone belongs and not waiting to belong, a society where everyone is valued. Let's keep making a difference. Have a great afternoon, everyone.